Hey, it's Don. This is video number 18 here for Patreon only. I've had the question too, can you make BOLO lists and things like that? I've got a BOLO video here right now, not like you see on YouTube. These are very specific records that I find all the time. And when I mean all the time, I mean dozens of these I find throughout the year. Not just one copy here, not just one copy there. All of these that I'm going to show you are all 78 records, all but one, I should say, that will show up in what most people think is junk lots. Most of these are big bands and things like that. We're going to go there in just a second here, but if you remember any discs at all, these 20 will make you the most money, and you're going to find them more than anything else. Now, I've looked through my list. I've looked through what I've sold. These records show up more than any other ones I get across the board all the time for the last at least 5 years, I can promise you. I've talked about some of them. I'm going to show you them, and we're going to talk about just those records. If you, again, remember anything, remember these specific records, these exact ones I'm showing you. I've got multiple copies of some of these in many cases. Don't pay attention to the prices that some of these sold for. I'm just giving you examples of them because a lot of people don't realize the value and put the buy it nows on these cheaper than I do. And I sell them for a lot more than most of these prices you're going to see. 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 of these, I don't remember how many I actually put of mine, are my records that I actually sold from comp sales. So I sell these all the time. If there was anything I could tell you what to look for in vintage records 78 specifically, it's this group here, because they show up regularly, they have a good sell-through rate, and they sell for a decent amount of profit every time I get them, every single time. This is the insider that people have been asking for. I get a ton of questions on records. People want to do it. This is a good one here. These show up in, geez, anywhere. Auctions. I find these same records, these exact same ones, including one I'll call out at Savers when Savers was opened here. I find some at Goodwill occasionally. I find them at flea markets, antique stores, antique malls, you name it. Auctions, estate sales for sure. Anywhere I find anything vintage, I find these. And again, it's anywhere you look, I can find these records. And as I said, you can find them at Savers as well. But we're going to cut over there right now, and I'm going to show you, I think it's 20 discs that I promise you will show up and do go for an incredibly good amount of money for what you have invested into them. So here we go. Okay, so the first one here, again, I've talked about In the Mood. You need to look at this record and pay attention to this specific label. I have a dozen or more of these in-house. I get them all the time. I always sell them between the 3 sites that I sell records on, Discogs, Amazon, and eBay. I get an average $40 for this record. This version here, I'll take that back. This version here, I get about 30. This one here is the one I get the most for, $40 on this one. It's In the Mood with Sunrise Serenade on the back. These show up all the time. Most people think these don't hold value. As soon as they see big band, they stop looking. I keep looking. I make more money on these than I do the ones that they are looking for because of the quantity of these I find. These are legit. These are honestly stuff that I find. Every time I'm going out looking just for 78s, I find this group of 20 or so records all the time. And they always sell. Always, always, always sell. If you need to ask when you find one of these what to price that specifically one, you hit it up down there and I promise you I'll give you a good answer on that. I know these records by heart. I've had 50 probably of In the Moods. So, you know, it's a good record. It doesn't matter how many is online. If you don't mind waiting a little longer, you're going to get that 40 for it, no matter what. Most people just pop these up. 8, 10, 15, 20 bucks buy it nows. I price them way higher and I always sell them. I'm top notch. The photos help to it. They should have done a better photo, darken it up a little bit, but anyway, you can see the difference. The backside, as I said, has Sunrise Serenade. It's a standard RCA Victor label, and the other one is the Bluebird version, and the back is If You or I Want to Be Happy. Again, there's like 4 different discs that all have In the Mood on it. These are the 2 you want. Don't pay attention to this 16. This guy could have just put this up for 30 or so bucks, and he would have gotten it if he waited. He's got a nice image. This is what you want. The gloss on there, V+, it's probably a E- would be my guess by the condition looking. He doesn't know his condition. This is better than an E, or better than a V+, it's an E-. You need condition grading or something. I can give you some gist on that. Plus, I've got the videos up on grading. Let's pop through these, since again, those 2 are givens. You see these records, you buy them. Up to $1, even $2, you're safe on these records. I don't usually spend $2, but any one of these you see here, as you see them, are records that I would spend that on it. Over the rainbow. On this one here, I usually put it up for 50 bucks, and I usually average between 35-ish and 45 on this one here. Over the Rainbow by Glenn Miller. Now, I'm just giving you some of the Glenn Millers. There's a ton more Glenn Miller, Chattanooga, Choo Choo, and things like that that sell very, very well that are going to show up. Because, again, most people think he's not worth anything. He's not rock. He's not pop. He's not teen idol. He's not the good country western. Big band, most people think is not good because, again, it's like a subset of jazz, so to speak, mixed with almost an R&B nature to it. So this is another one. You've got to get these when you see them. You dig around enough. I find these at antique malls for $1 or $2 all the time. No exaggeration, no make-believe cases. I'm going to show you a haul here of some 78s coming up real quick, too. I bought 400 or 500. That's a lot for 78s to get in one lump sum. So I'll probably show you those here, maybe, or at least show you some key discs to look for. But again, what I'm showing you now, pay attention. I'm drill that into you. These will all make you some money. And these are the most common ones to show up across the board. I've looked through my records. I've looked on eBay. I've spent a long time with these records. I've been buying these for years, and I mean years, these records. And I've always sold them. The price has gone up on these. They're not going down. They are going up. With me being able to sell them on other sites, it doubles my chances, triples my chances of selling them for top dollar, as opposed to the folks that are blowing them out for 15, 20 bucks or less on these same kind of discs. Next one here. This one, I'm telling you, this is another good one. Most people pass this by. Benny Goodman, there's very few records. You could have 400 different Benny Goodman records, and there's only a handful, 4 or 5, that are worth buying. But this one I run into a lot. Every one of Sing, 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 I sell pretty much right away. 50 bucks is about the average on this record, no matter what. I usually pay $1 or less. Go to YouTube and listen to some of these songs so you know what they sound like. For those who say, I'd have no idea what that sounds like, you play it. If you're in my age group, you're probably going to have heard it before from your parents or somebody. It's a well-known one. It's in tons of movies, and I mean tons of movies. Sing, Sing, Sing. So look out for this one as well, too. So let's move on here. Take the A Train. Another one. This is $1 at the most. I usually get these for $1 or less. I usually get 30 bucks for this one. Again, don't pay attention to what they put them on. They put them in as auction. Auction is not the best way to put these. Put them up, all of these, as a bin with the buy it now. Put them much higher than what these cheapo ones are going for, and you're going to get it. Someone's just going to want to get it and be done with messing with it. They don't want to wait to bid. They don't want to wait a week, 7, 10 days, or whatever the case may be, and still might not get it. But bin, buy it now, best offer on this. 30-buck disc right here, Duke Ellington. It's a killer. And again, this is another one of the ones they played in movies that you would recognize if you heard it. I know what every one of these sounds like from start to finish because I've dealt with these for so long. Now, here's the only 45 in here, just because most people miss this one too. And it's on a 78, which I'm going to show you as well too. Malika Maki, I'm not pronouncing it very well, but it's in, I believe, Home Alone, in the first one, and I think he's singing it. It's this version of it, honestly. This one people miss all the time. Most people will not buy a Bing Crosby 45 to save their life. Every one of these, now these are going up big time. I used to get 50 bucks to 95 bucks for this disc. This disc has broke the $200 mark religiously now. Average price now is $150 on this disc in this condition. And it shows up a lot. That's why I say there's some discs that are always out there that I run into a lot. This disc, this label, most of this label is not going to be worth much money ever. But this specific Christmas one will sell all year round for this kind of money. And it's cheap, and I see it a lot. We're going to cross back here to the actual, here's the 78 version of that same disc. So again, the 78 one doesn't sell for as much, but again, it's $1 I usually pay. Even $2. I'd pay $5. I would probably pay $10 for this one here and take the shot at it, because I know I'm going to get at least 50 bucks no matter what. No matter what. The 45 will go for 200, 150 to 200. The 78's a little cheaper. In some cases, it's the other way around where the 78's worth more. But these discs I am showing you, please pay attention, are killer discs that I find all the time. And don't tell me it's because of states where I live, because I found this disc in Florida, Boston, in Ohio, all over the place, wherever I go in Ohio. I found it in Mississippi even. I found it in California and Denver. That's a big swatch of this country. Even Michigan I find it in. So, you know, and we've driven down through Georgia. I found them in Glen Burn, Georgia area as well. These same discs across the board. So It's something that you will find. I will promise you that you're going to find one of these discs if you heavily look for records and go to some of these ads in Craigslist and auctions. You're going to run into one of these. Write these down if that's what it takes you to do this. Let me move on here. 85, as I said. Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy. The Andrews Sisters. This one shows up all the time too. Most people see the Andrews Sisters and they'll just pass it by. I know this song from Abbott and Costello movies. I think Hit the Deck this was in, if I'm not mistaken. I grew up watching those. They were still reruns on the weekends. They played Little Gang, or Our Gang, Laurel and Hardy. I loved the Three Stooges. Pretty much the original, but Shump's fine because he was an original Three Stooge before Curly. He dropped out, Curly joined up, and then Shump came back in later on. There was Curly Joe and Joe Besser and the whole works. I really looked into the Three Stooges. I used to collect the actual 1959 Fleer cards of the Three Stooges. I was only missing like 7 or 8. I ended up selling them, but anyway, this one, $100, average price is $75 or better on this disc. And again, I find it all the time. I'm not showing you stuff that's going to waste your time. These are the BOLOs for this segment. Now, obviously, there's a ton more that are worth a lot more money, but you're going to run into these. I'm not trying to give you ones that most people are going to say, give you a BOLO list of a jacket or a specific shirt that you're going to see once in a blue moon. These show up, I promise you. There are a couple of these I have. I save listings because I sell them so often, and I'll show you those towards the end. There's, like in the mood, I've got listings already always created for those, where I can just click a button and boom, I can relist that one instantly with just a new photo. Sometimes I can spend a couple $100, invest $1 a disc on a couple hundred discs, and I'll have probably half of these records I'm showing you in that lot. That's how common they are. People just don't get it. Next one, Beer Miss Du Shun. It's a German rendition of this, Means That You're Grand. Andrews Sisters again. There's some that I look for, and this is another one of those. This one always sells. They're grading it wrong. VG Plus is not a grading scale for a 78 for the true 78 record person. This would probably be a V plus. Would be my gather. But again, $50 or better every time, all the way up to 95 on this disc. And again, it shows up. This is a junk label for the most part. Almost every disc on this label is junk. You're talking 5% that aren't. But this is one of those 5% that always shows up. On the next one here, Holiday Inn. You should find one of these discs I'm showing you fairly quickly if you're heavily looking for records. So it should pay for your trip, just, you know, your first couple days, I would hope. The Christmas Bing Crosby discs always sell. This is a perfect example. I get this one at least a half a dozen times a year or more. Every single year. I do not worry if it's Christmas time to sell these. These will always sell. $80. There's a couple different versions of these too. You'll see them with a slightly different colored spine. I believe there's a version of this that has an extra disc as well too. But I buy every one. Even if it's missing a record, I will buy it. You can still sell these even if they're missing a record. And then you can sometimes sell the individual records out of here. White Christmas itself sometimes will sell for $40 to $50, which I have a copy to show you as well. Another one. I've had at one time like 15 of these at one time that I hadn't listed. They sell very quickly. I stagger the market with these. Sometimes I can have 3 running at the exact same time and sell all 3 of the sets. Now this is one that has a 4-disc set and a 5-disc set. The 5-disc set goes for a little more. They both show up. They both show up. Count the discs. And again, I'll buy them with missing discs. I'll even buy empty folders of just these because I can still get 15 or 20 bucks for an empty folder. But I usually hang on to them because I run into the discs so much that I can finish off these sets. I'll run into a Bing Crosby collection that has 50 or 60 Bing Crosbys. I'll finish off this and buy some for the next one. At sometimes I'm finishing off 3 and 4 different sets of these albums. That's how common I get them. Let's move on here. Perfect example, White Christmas. This disc goes into that last set. $50 on its own. This is an anomaly. It's a little higher than usual. $30 to $40 is usually what I sell them for. His condition isn't super good, but it's at least an E-, which is a pretty darn good disc. Frank Sinatra. Love and Marriage. If you don't know the song, I'm sure you've heard it many times. Married with Children this is used for the soundtrack. I usually get $30 for this. He's got some tape damage to the label, so I would imagine that affected him only getting 20 on this. Again, dollar disc. I see this one all the time. Sometimes I've got 5 and 6 of these in stock for a very short time until they sell. I sell these on every site. All these discs I'm showing you sell on all the sites that I mentioned. Amazon first for these type of discs, eBay second, and then Discogs. Next one. This is insider as you can get because these discs are on my list of always buying. So, White Christmas by Frank Sinatra. 25 bucks around the holiday is usually what I get for this specific disc. Sometimes I'll just throw it out all throughout the year and not worry about it. You'll have to watch my videos on how to pack these if you're going to go have any of these. But I'm telling you, I make a lot on these type of records. Most people pass them up. Most people want the LPs and the 45s. I don't care. I'll go for anything. And when they're on there listed as big band jazz, I always look at those ads. I can usually find a good big band jazz on Craigslist or on Facebook Marketplace or even at these auctions and stuff. So again, good disc. Again, don't worry about their pricing. If you need a price on any of these discs, I will give you the current, going price on any of these discs. Just pop it down there. Let's see here. That's Amore. Now, he does Volare, and it sells about as good as this one does, sometimes better. Dean Martin I always look for. That's Amore always sells for me, always. In fact, I just sold a couple copies of this, so I might have even missed some of the ones I've just probably showed you might have been my discs too, because I pulled several that were my sales rates on these, just so you can see how often I do sell these. I don't really want to share my Amazon. If I show you my Amazon, you're going to see the same discs selling quite often on Amazon for top dollar. But that's Amore here. This one shows up very often. All good ones, all good ones. I grew up, I'm older than a lot of the folks just getting into reselling, so they don't know what this stuff is. They're looking at the higher end stuff, thinking, just pass this by, but I'll buy something for $1 that I'm going to get 20 bucks out of or 25 bucks out of all day long. Why do I mess with searching for clothing at a store? Because it takes so long to go through the entire clothing. I can look through hundreds of records in just a matter of minutes. And they're usually in one single spot, and I don't have to go around. I can buy them at auction. I can just redonate or auction off the rest after I've picked through them and get my money back. Sometimes I get all my money back when I pull out like 10 or 15 discs and then resell the lot of these records back. I'll take them to the same auction I bought them at, believe it or not. That's what I do, honestly. That's why I say don't just go buy big lots of stuff and think it's just a great deal, because I get rid of mine that way. I might be at the place and never even take the whole stack home, pull out the ones I want, pay him his money. He's not going to care. He'll re-auction those same ones off again. And I'm out nothing, basically. It won't be that same week. It'll be having to be scheduled a week or two later, but I don't care. Let's see here. Memories are made of this. In fact, this is mine right here, a perfect example. I sold 2 of these off this listing. Never list more than 2 of any of these. Mint condition, you can just see, again, 20 bucks a piece is what I get for this one here. All the time, all day in and day out. Day in, day out's actually a Frank Sinatra song. That's a $15 disc, just a side note. 20 bucks on a real good day. It's on a Columbia Red label, that day in, day out. Charleston. This one shows up. Now, this isn't technically big band. This is 20s, 1922, 24 era probably. The Charleston sells. This is actually on public domain now, this version of the song itself. So just keep that in mind. This one shows up quite often. It's a decent disc. 50 in so-so condition, all the way up to 100 on this disc. And I do find this quite often. Good one. I just got a few more. But again, I promise you, write down these on a piece of paper if you think you're going to be looking for these. I promise you these are things that I sell all the time. The Wizard of Oz, this is one of mine right here. I got $82 for it. Last one I sold for $75, so my price is a little higher. I put this together. I bought this album empty. Another album, the last one I bought missing one disc, and I found the missing disc within 2 months. So I don't care if something sits. I've sold a dozen of these recently. This same one. Different conditions. I've sold these for years. This particular one I've always sold. Now, you can split them up even, sell some of the discs. Wizard of Oz discs in general sell. I don't care if it's the 1910 or 15 photoplay version of Wizard of Oz, it's going to sell. Wizard of Oz, but this particular one I always sell. People miss this one all the time. It's 78s. They don't mess with the binders in 78s. If it's a high-end collector or high-end seller, I should say, a high-end buyer who's going to flip them, they're looking at single discs almost exclusively. I've walked past behind people doing the searching through the records and pulled stuff like this out. And they're people that I know who do records. I don't do it when they can see what I'm picking out because I don't want them to know, but I've done it many, many, many times. I can pick these kind of things up even sometimes at a antique mall. Not this one because they usually price this in the $40, $50 range. But anyway, This is the other thing I do sometimes. Now, this disc I don't think is the same version in that album. I'm brain dead right now on which version of the disc is in there. There's several different versions of each of these, and sometimes they'll be mixed matched in those albums. So you'll buy an album like the Wizard of Oz one I just showed you, and there'll be like 2 different labels in that album, and they were issued sometimes that way. So don't think that's strange either. As long as the song titles are the correct song titles, it's a legit album. And those are called albums because that's what our modern day albums are based on. So Over the Rainbow always sells. And you can see it sold. This one sold for pretty good on it. This one isn't necessarily, I don't think the Jitterbugs from, yeah, I guess it is. So anyway, this sells on its own even. I sell it as a set usually because the other discs in this aren't worth as much money. So this is the big dollar one as well as the album itself. I've sold empty Wizard of Oz of that same one that I just showed you for in the $20 or $30 range. Now there's 2 different versions. Actually, there's 3 different versions of that. There's a soft, like a thin cardboard version. That's a thick cardboard, like an actual book. There's a thinner version of it, and then there's one I believe that has an extra disc in it too. $70 for this one, and I've got one more, and this one is another one of mine. This one shows up, believe it or not, and this is not from the Wizard of Oz. This is just a normal set of 78s. And I've found this one quite a few times. Most people don't pay attention. Again, it looks like some blonde person. Judy Garland's had blonde hair, if I'm not mistaken. But either way, I know instantly this one to look for, and I can tell by the spine, honestly. I literally sometimes don't even have to pull these out. I'll just buy them if it's $1 or $2. So this is it. This is a good BOLO list. This is like the top ones that I find. Again, I'm not giving you ones that you're never going to find. So many people out there give you a BOLO list that's just not practical. You're not going to find it. I've thought about this from a different aspect. I'm giving you the cheaper records. They're not going to sell for thousands of dollars, but you're going to find them. This will get you interested. Once you've found a couple of these discs, you're going to see what I mean. You'll run into them more, if that's your thing. Hopefully, I pray that everybody here is interested in knowing this aspect of it too. Again, if you're going to a place that sells collectibles, it's going to be a huge variety of stuff. That's why I have to know all these other areas. That's why people are puzzled how I can know so many areas. You have to. You have to. There's just no other way around it. You've got to know all of these other aspects of it. So I might only find a couple records worth $60 or $70 if I'm sourcing at one location, if I only can look for records. But if I know to look for postcards, I might increase that, my profit-wise, and make $100 or $120. I might learn photographs and add another $10 to my trip to that place. If you know books, you can add some books to that. There might be some vintage clothing as well, too. So don't give up any specific category. I can afford to do it because I don't care about clothing. I make so much more money now, and I found so many other sources and items to look for after doing this for so many years. So it's just time. There's nothing special about me. It's just time. I've researched all these over the years and figured out which ones are worth money, and I know which ones I see over and over and over and over and over again. And those are the ones I'm giving you, the ones that are out there. I don't want to tell you to find this and then you get frustrated because you don't see what's on a BOLO list. This BOLO list are things that I find. I mean, I routinely find, not just one-offs or two-offs, or I found 3 of these in my lifetime. Some of these I found 50 or 60 of these in my lifetime. I shouldn't say lifetime. I'll give you the last 6-7 years of full-time eBay. That's the last 6 or 7 years of full-time eBay. Some of these I found 50 or 60. But that's what I have. Hopefully that really puts you down some thoughts on this. Write them down if you need to. I was hesitant to type out a list on these specific discs because you really got to see them. You've got to know what they are. If you get the Patreon app on your phone and you see one of these discs, you can quickly fly through this video and see if it's the same label. You won't have to quick source and try and figure out on eBay and look at different listings. These are the exact labels that I find over and over and over again. So that's what I have for you today.